Let's start sitting up nice and tall as we always do, any comfortable position. So if we want to be in our tailor pose, that's fine. If we want to be in our Dandasana, that's fine. If we want to be sitting on our feet, coming into the thunderbolt, or maybe even into our hero with our heels outside our hips. We don't care about the position. We only care that we find a comfortable spot to get grounded, tuning into our breath. If you want to use one of the mudras that helps our concentration, we can do chin mudra with thumb and index finger together, or palm over palm with the thumbs touching. And we're just paying so much attention to the breath that we start letting go of all that chatter in our minds. Breathing in tranquility as we breathe out tension. Breathing in serenity as we breathe out stress. Making sure that our breath is moving in that wave-like motion, belly moving out on our inhale, then rib cage cresting high, opening wide before we start with the wave foaming at the top, rolling back down over the next incoming wave. Noticing that some are more shallow, some more deeper, some longer, some shorter. Not trying to control our breath in any way, just giving it our full attention. On our next inhale, let's slowly lift our chin up to the sky, and with our breath, bring the chin back down toward our chest. As soon as we're ready to inhale, working with the length of the breath, we'll lift our chin high to the sky. When we're ready to exhale, dropping that chin down. Letting the breath be the indicator of the movement. And the next time we bring our chin up, we're going to bring our shoulders up as well, hugging them really high to the sky, and then we're going to drop them as low as we can to the floor. As we push chin down into chest, we push shoulders down. Deep breath in, stretching high. And next time we bring our chin up, we'll bring our hands up, and we're going to follow with our eyes as we bring the hands high to the sky. Open wide to the side with the palms up so that we're externally rotating as we abduct, turning palms down, bringing fingertips together. The harder we can push through the palms of the hands, the heels, the more strengthening we'll be doing through the wrists and the lower arms as well. Palms open, then down, our internal rotation. Next time we bring our arms up, we'll bring our arms in cactus arms. And doing a little bit of rotating through the shoulder by dropping hands down to the floor, palms facing behind us. And the next time we bring our arms up, we'll bring our palms together, opening, making fist with our hands as we widen, arching our back, hands together. Nice deep inhale as we stretch, and together. Our wing and our prayer. And the next time we open the arms, we're going to take a bend to the side, bringing our elbow in, other hand up. We'll stay on that side. If we want to work through the fingers again, we'll stretch the fingers of the lifted hand wide apart and make a fist as we come back together. Let's switch to the opposite side. And then taking us to a twist. We're going to bring our elbows together on one side as we rotate through belly, rib cage, heart. Come back to center again, starting with the pulse on the hip, rotating to the rib cage. Bringing the other arm over. We don't care if the arms never touch. We'll just go as far as we can on the turn without strain. And then the next time we bring the elbow across, we're going to keep our shoulders squared off with our hips, so we're not twisting it all this time. We're just bringing that elbow over, taking our opposite arm and pulling that elbow as tight as we can into our opposite shoulder. so that we're maximizing the stretch, that we're getting through the deltoids on this arm, trapezius getting a stretch. We're pulling the shoulder blade away so the rhomboids are working. Now we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. Pulsing on the far hip as we rotate through the rib cage, bringing the elbows together on the side. And keeping the shoulder squared this time, we're just going to bring the elbow over. We're going to bring our opposite arm and pull that elbow as tight as we can into our shoulder so that we're maximizing the stretch across the shoulder. Dropping our hands to the ground, we're going to straighten out our legs, and we're going to flop our toes toward the outside as we widen our legs apart, flop them toward the inside as we bring them back together. So we're rotating through that hip joint, as well as stretching or strengthening the muscles on the in or an outer part of the thighs. We're going to sit up nice and tall. We're going to take this to our butter churn so we can bring our hands together. We're going to lean as far as is comfortable over toward one leg, maybe even bringing our rib cage down, but not necessarily. Bringing our hands together across the front and then leaning all the way as far back as we can. Imagining ourselves churning that butter in that cast between our legs, switching direction. So again, we go in a range of motion that suits. If we don't come as far forward every time as we did the previous time, that works. We just stay where we can. And then getting ready to come to a kneeling position. We're going to make sure that we end up in our Chakravartikasana with our hands underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips. We're going to loosen up to the back a little bit more by doing our cat and cow. So we're going to think about lifting the belly first, lifting the rib cage, pulling the shoulders tight together as we drop chin in the chest, and now letting the belly drop so that tailbone lifts, letting the rib cage drop, pulling the shoulder blades tighter together as we lift the chin. Trying to really exaggerate the lift as we come into our cat and drop that belly, remembering that the belly is representing that udder. That's why this is called cow pose. So we let it go as low as it possibly can. And now we're going to loosen up a little bit more through the hips. So we're going to take a deep breath and extend our leg far behind us, lift our chin, and then bring that knee in toward our chest as we curl into a ball. Nice slow movement with our breath. And switching to the opposite leg. And then loosening up a bit more through the hips, we're going to go into our spinal balance with our breath. So we're going to lift our leg and the opposite arm straight forward, drop it down to the ground, switch to the other side. Trying to get the heel even with our hips, our head just resting on the inside of an arm. Now we're going to take this to slider, bringing our arm and leg out to the side rather than straight forward. So we're getting a little bit more on the inner and outer muscles instead of front and back. Now we're going to come back to all fours, bring our hands further forward. We're just going to rock back and forth a little bit. And next time we come forward, we're going to drop ourselves down into a plank, push back up, push back as low as we'd like in our child's pose if we'd like, or higher into our kneeling plank, and then our kneeling chaturanga. Now we're going to come to all fours, and we're going to bring one foot forward, keeping knee and ankle in alignment throughout our pose here. We're going to take this to a high lunge. If we're feeling any tightness through the hip, we can rock back and forth a little bit more first. Before we turn the toes of the back foot under, lift that leg. We're trying to keep the hips low. We're not trying to get the hips high to the sky. We're trying to get that leg as straight and as far forward as possible. Maybe a slight internal rotation, but the heel is not on the ground. We're up on the ball of the foot. We're pushing down as hard as we can to maximize the stretch. Down around the muscles of the lower leg, the calf, muscles on the inner and outer ankle, building up strength in the arch of the foot. We're going to make sure that we've got our feet an appropriate distance apart to keep ourselves balanced. And then we're going to take the hand and bring our forearm to rest on top of our thigh. If we feel stable here, we're going to take our opposite arm, bring it forward. Trying to make a straight line from our fingertips down through our back heel, still keeping the hips low. Then arms out to either side in their airplane arms. And then if we'd like, hands to our thigh, getting ourselves nicely aligned, shoulders over hips. And again, depending upon how steady we feel, we can bring our arms up and out to either side. And we're going to drop our hands to the floor. We're going to shift our weight forward onto our right front foot. Those of us who can easily do a balancing pose might want to come up higher so that we can get our arms out to either side in our airplane arms, bring our head even with our hips and lift our back leg. Those of us who are balance challenged are going to come up as high as we can on our fingertips and then lift that back leg up. Then we're going to come back into our lunge. We're going to take this to a revolve lunge, taking our right hand close to our left foot. We're going to make sure that heel's still off the ground, but now we're going to start doing a twist by pulsing on the long leg hip. We're going to slide the belly across our bent leg. We're going to rotate through the rib cage, and now we work on getting the shoulder as far back as we can before we think about lifting hand high to the sky. Coming back around to center. We're going to drop our knee down to the ground. We're going to kneel up nice and tall and straighten out our front leg. We'd like it as straight as possible without locking the knee, but if we don't feel stable, if we're feeling too much stretch to the hamstring, we can bring that foot back a little. We're going to do our hip hinge. So we're pulling the iliac crest forward. We're tightening our abdominal muscles, coming down as low as we can in toward our left leg. Bringing belly lower and lower in toward the leg. And then deciding how deeply we want to go into the pose. Paying attention to what's going on the hamstring, around the knee. Is this comfortable? Can we go deeper? If so, can we work a little bit more on the stretches through the arm by slowly walking our fingers forward toward our foot. So now we're getting the trapezius, latissimus dorsi, all getting a better stretch. Rhomboids are pulling the shoulder blades further from our spine, so they're stretching as well. And then we're going to slowly walk the hands back. Slide our foot back just far enough so that we can get the foot flat on the ground, but our knee's going to be a little bit behind us before we kneel up tall. We're going to go into our crescent lunge with our hands on the back of our hips or palms against our kidneys. But now we're doing our posterior tilt. We're pushing the tailbone forward. We're lifting with the iliac crest. We're making space between our pubic bone and our navel, between our navel and our solar plexus. Trying to pull those shoulder blades tight together, lifting the heart high to the sky. Maybe pushing forward a little bit more now so that the front knee and ankle are in alignment, getting more stretch on the quadricep on that back leg. And then if we'd like, arms up and out. Lifting high. And then kneeling tall. Letting the back stretch, we're going to take our front foot and bring it back so we do have that 90-degree angle in the leg. We're going to do our hip hinge forward. Hands coming down with the right hand in front of the right knee. Left hand inside our front left foot. And then we'll slowly bend our elbows, coming lower and lower into the ground. If we can get one elbow or both elbows all the way to the floor, that would be great. But we move slowly. We make sure that we're not feeling any sense of strain or pain. And we decide where we need to stop. And then we're going to kneel up nice and tall. Take this to a twist by taking our front hand and holding onto that leg so we don't pull it to the side as we rotate through belly, rib cage, heart. We then bring our back hand, maybe just resting on the back of our thigh, maybe bringing fingertips to our calf or all the way to our foot. And once we get our shoulders lined up with the inside of that front leg, if we'd like, we can take our opposite hand up and over the top. And coming back, kneeling up tall. We're going to rotate now out to the side so that we can get this foot and ankle in alignment. Now we'll leave this one on the floor and just bring the foot behind us, straighten out the leg. That was the front. In my case, the left leg now. Stretching both arms up to the sky before we start leaning in and stretching. Trying to really lift the shoulder blade away from the rib cage, lift the rib cage away from the hip, making sure that we're not rotating to the spine so that front shoulder's not coming any closer to the floor. We're just driving it out over our long leg, taking our time, coming down as low as we'd like. And then inhaling and coming up. Bringing our hand down to the floor so that we can take this to our balancing side plank. We're going to bring our hand forward. We're still keeping this knee and ankle in alignment. We can decide what we want to do with this arm, either straight up to the sky, overhead, and if we'd like, we can start lifting that back leg so that we're getting more work being done through the gluteus medius and minimus, tensor fasciae lata, having to work harder, the obliques as well, and then bringing that hand down. We're going to bring our knees together, kneeling up nice and tall so that we can come into our camel pose. So it's going to be hands again, either as fists on the back or we're going to bring our palms against our kidneys. We make sure that we don't start pulling the hips back because then we turn this into work in the legs. We want to keep the work up in the back, so we keep the hips right over the knees. We push the tailbone forward. We start making space along the front of our body, lifting high to the sky. If we'd like, we can bring our hands lower down our legs, maybe fingertips touching the calf, maybe reaching all the way to our heels. But if that means we've got to pull our hips back, we've got to work those hips forward to keep them up over the knees. And then release them. Dropping forward, hands to the floor, rounding our back into another cat and cow routine. And we'll go into a down dog to work a little bit more on our upper body strength. Making sure that we're pushing the shoulders back toward our toes, that we don't have those shoulders forward. We're pressing through past the first knuckle of our fingers, especially on the index finger and the thumb. We're pushing through the heels, but we're making sure that we can pick up the toes. We don't have our feet so far back that we don't have the balls of the feet well planted on the ground. We'll come forward into a plank. We're pulling the shoulder blades tight in toward each other, down toward our spine. We're thinking about pushing down with the tailbone, but lifting with the head of the femur so we don't have the tush up in the air or sinking into the ground. We'll push back into a down dog. And now we're going to do our lunges on the opposite side. So we're going to swing the opposite leg forward to be able to come into our lunge. And again, the back heel is lifted. The leg is long. If we need to, we can put a little bend in it, but we'd like to keep it as straight as possible. We're trying to get the hips low, so we might be able to wiggle that foot back a little more, but not at the expense of our stability. If we can't establish the firm foundation, the rest of the poses will never work. And now we're going to take our arm and bring it up to our thigh. Bring our shoulders a little bit higher so that we can make a straight line from our hands through our shoulder, through our hip to the heel of the foot. And arms out to either side in our airplane arms. Finding our stability as we bring the shoulders back. Stacking shoulders over hips. And then if we'd like, arms out to the side. And then making our choice of how we want to do our airplane. More challenging to our balance. If we just shift our weight forward, bring our head even with our hips, a straight line, spine parallel to the floor, arms out to either side, and lifting our leg behind us. Those of us who are more balance challenged, who don't want to do this on one leg, can bring our hands to the floor, coming up as high as we can on our fingertips to get our spine as straight as we can from head to hip, not letting the head drop lower if possible. And then bringing that foot back. Dropping that back knee down to the ground so we can come into our half pyramid again. We're going to straighten out our front leg. Hinge at the hips, come forward. And this is all about how tight can we get the abs, how tight can we get the quad. We can play around with the foot flex, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, see which gives us the best advantage for the muscles that we feel we want to have working. But we're just going to slowly drop down into that leg. The farther forward we can bring our hands, the more stretch we're going to get through the upper back, through the muscles of the shoulders, but we're not at the expense of causing any abuse to the muscles. We'd like to feel them, but we don't want to feel any pain. We move slowly so that we can tell when we're reaching that point beyond which we should not be going. And now walking the hands back, sliding the foot back. So we can plant it flat on the floor, but it's a little bit of ankle in front of the knees. So as we go into our crescent lunge, we've got some maneuverability to get those hips a little further forward. Hands on our back again as we choose. Posterior tilt with the tailbone moving forward. That bony part of the hips, the iliac crest, the peak of the pelvic bowl always goes in the direction of the shoulders. So we're pulling the shoulders back. We're lifting the heart. We're going for height through the upper chest. And if we'd like, arms up and out. Maybe pushing a little bit further forward now so we can get more stretch to the quadriceps, through that hip flexor on the back leg. And we're going to hinge forward. We're going to bring this front foot back so that we do have the 90-degree angle now. We're going to drop our hands down in front of our shoulders. Left hand's going to be right in front of the knee, and then we're going to drop our elbows, bending lower and lower and lower. We're going to stop where we feel we should. We feel the muscles working. We think if we go any deeper, it's not going to work well for us. If we'd like, we can get one elbow or both elbows down to the ground. We may find a considerable difference between one side and the other. And then we'll slowly come up. We're going to take this to our twist. So we're going to take our hand and hold the inside of the leg to make sure we don't pull the knee out of alignment, keeping it well over the ankle. Then we do our twist by pulsing on the forward hip, rotating through the belly, through the rib cage, getting the shoulders as lined up as we can with the inside of that front leg, and then maybe bending back a little more, before we bring the front hand up and over the top. And then kneeling up tall. we're going to take the back foot and swing it around. We're going to straighten out our front leg. As much as we can, we're trying to get knees in alignment. If we need to keep a slight bend in this long leg, we can do that. We're looking for stability first. We're lining up hips and shoulders, hands straight to the sky. And then we're going to do our lean over toward our long leg. We're watching that we're not letting this low hand push into our knee. So we're either going to bring it up on our thigh, up on our hip, or all the way down to our shin. We're watching that top shoulder, not letting it twist. And then deep breath in. Bringing our hand down to the floor. We can't drop it straight down. We have to go out, so when we shift our weight, we have the shoulder in alignment with the hand. And we decide what we want to do with the arms, what we want to do with the leg. And then foot to the floor. We're going to drop ourselves down on our back. So we'll swing our legs around, roll down, pull our knees in toward our chest on our Apanasana. Getting as tight as we can. Really good for our digestion. If we want to, we can roll side to side to massage our back a little. But then we're going into our dead bug. So we're going to slide our right knee as far as we can in alignment with the right armpit. Same thing with the left. We can grab on to the backs of our thighs with the index finger behind our knee. We're going to bring our feet straight up to the sky, directly over our knees. We're trying not to let them drop down toward our tailbone. If we'd like now, still keeping the waistline, the spine as much as possible down on the floor, just lifting a little through the outside of the shoulders. We can either bring our arms between our legs, wrap 2 fingers and the thumb around the big toe, or hold on to the outside of our feet. But we're trying to pull our knees closer and closer into the floor to get a better stretch through the hamstrings of the legs, to feel that pressure of the back into the floor, massaging it. And then we're going to slowly bring our feet together. Going into our butterfly wings, we can hold onto our ankles or our shins, leveraging the elbows to the inner sides of the thigh. And then we're going to bring our knees together, doing a little bit of core work by going into our water wheel. So we're going to bring our hands in toward our hips, gives us a little bit more stability through the back. We're going to pull our knees tight toward our chest and straighten out our legs. Start pulling them forward, close to the floor, but not letting them come all the way down before we bend our knees, pulling them back in toward our chest, up to the sky and around, in toward our chest. And then reversing direction. Straightening the legs parallel to the floor first. Before we lift the legs, pull our knees in toward our chest. Then we're going to drop our feet to the floor. We're going to stretch our hands high to the sky, push the fingers as tight as we can up toward the sun. Then we're going to drop the shoulders well under the ground as we bring hand to opposite elbow. We're going to take our left leg, cross it over the right, stacking knee over knee. And as we push our elbows to the left, we'll turn our chin and our legs to the right. And then coming back to center, we're going to open our arms wide to either side. And we're going to let our knees slowly drop toward the left side. Letting the weight of the top leg give us a really good stretch on the bottom supporting leg. Thinking about taking that foot on the bottom and seeing if we're up on the toes, can we bring the heel down to the ground and get the entire inner edge along the floor. And slowly dropping. The lower we can come, the more stretch we're going to get through the side of the hip, and then bringing the knees up to the sky. Planting both feet on the ground, lifting arms up to the sky, pushing up high before we drop shoulders to the ground, cross elbows and hands together, and then lifting the opposite leg over the top. We'll move elbows in the opposite direction of the chin and the knees. Now we'll bring our arms up from our shoulders and drop knees in the direction of the top leg. And again, we're looking to see if we can get the supporting foot on the floor so we've got it flat on the big toe side of the foot. And the more we can think about tightening the muscles, especially on the top leg, the more we're going to get that stretch to the side of the hip. At the same time, the legs are working to get the knees low to the ground. We're going to be working on core strength, especially on that back shoulder, pulling it down in toward our spine so that we're getting that shoulder really well planted in the surface of our mat, that we're getting a really good diagonal twist, massaging those internal organs by bringing as tightly as we can. Then we'll lift our knees back up to the sky, planting both feet on the floor, maybe just widening our feet a little bit, leaving our knees up to the sky, maybe bringing our hands a little closer together. Usually about 30-degree angle is the most comfortable, but we can play around to see where we get our arms resting so that we have no muscles working through the shoulders, through the back. We can straighten out our legs in our corpse pose. We can roll on our side. We can come to any pose that allows us to get totally relaxed. Scanning our body from head to toe and seeing if there's anything that needs a little more attention. Maybe wiggling our head side to side, shaking out our arms, lifting and lowering our knees. Whatever we need to do to get perfectly relaxed. And tune into our breath. Taking as long as we'd like, staying in this position.